Yo, what's up, world? Welcome back to the channel. APWSPORTS signing in, and unfortunately, this is the last preview video of this Chicago Bears season. Thank you guys for sticking with me throughout this channel. We all know it's been a rough year, to say the least, for the Bears this season, and us as fans that truly love this team, fans that truly love this organization. It has been an absolute rough ride.
So much pain! So much pain!
But it is at the end of its road as the Bears travel to Minnesota to take on the Minnesota Vikings in a game that really doesn't mean much for either team outside of pride, of course, and draft position. Well, not for the Bears because the Giants have our pick, but we do have Justin Fields. But nonetheless, this game doesn't really mean much outside of draft position and also pride for each particular team. It's going to be one of those games that's probably going to lose some type of a luster because of that. But us as fans, we get to see our Chicago Bears for the last time this season, and what a ride it's been. So before I get into this, make sure you guys leave this video a like. That always helps the channel, and it's appreciation that you guys have shown me. And also, if you are not subscribed and you are a first-time viewer of this channel, make sure you click that subscribe button and notification bell so you will not miss any of the content that I post on this channel. Without further ado, let's dive into it.
I'm striving to get rich. That's why I always went 2 years without buying shoes and fits. Things change now. My mom hearing me with my music and she look a little proud.
The first matchup was a 17-9 contest on Monday Night Football, even though it really wasn't a 17-9. It was more 17-3. The Bears scored at the very last minute to make it 17-9. But in the first contest, the Bears offense struggled, to say the least. Struggle's not even the word. It looked abysmal, to say the least, with Justin Fields as a starting quarterback. Minnesota's defense was really getting after Justin Fields and getting after our offense. To say the least, it's going to be a little bit different, as Justin Fields was unfortunately placed on the COVID list at the recording of this video, and it really looks like the season finale for Justin Fields is in doubt, despite Nagy naming him the starter earlier in the week. Then right after that, he gets placed on the COVID list. Even though, me personally, I do not think he should play because, number one, you're in an offense that's probably not going to be here next season. Despite Justin Fields getting those game reps, it's going to be game reps in the offense that you're probably not going to be in this next year. It's going to be with coaching staff that's not really doing the evaluation of you, and they're going to get almost a false sense of evaluation of Justin Fields because he's in a totally different offense. But nonetheless, he's on the COVID list and he's probably not going to play. So at the time of this video, they have not named the starter either between Andy Dalton or Nick Foles. I'm assuming that Nagy is more than likely probably going to go towards Andy Dalton as a starting quarterback. This Bears offense is probably at one of the healthiest points it's been at in a while. Now, Jakeem Grant was placed on injured reserve due to an injury, but for the most part, this Bears offense has a lot of their pieces back. They still have the identity of the run game with Montgomery, Williams, and Herbert. And I think with that, outside of not having Fields, you have probably Andy Dalton, which is, I think, going to be a starter in my opinion. Going up against the Minnesota Vikings defense, they pretty much held this Bears offense in check in the Monday night contest earlier this season. Now, Minnesota is without Everson Griffin, of course, Danielle Hunter. They do have Harrison Smith. They do have Anthony Barr. They do have Eric Kendricks out, which I think he's one of the best middle linebackers in the game. And he was eventually kicked out of the earlier Monday night contest due to a helmet-to-helmet hit on Justin Fields. But this Minnesota Vikings defense, it hasn't been the strength that we necessarily would have thought it would have been with a lot of those key guys in the lineup like Xavier Woods. Patrick Peterson hasn't really been the absolute same player that we've used to seeing him. The Bears' plan of attack, I think, in this game should be still running the football, even though Dalvin Tomlinson has been really stout up front for that Minnesota Vikings defense, Sheldon Richardson as well. This Bears offensive line, I really believe, has to be the strength of this team in this ball game. Not only just in pass protection to protect either Dalton or Foles, but in the running game as well. As Peters is getting back off an injury, Fetty, I still don't believe he should be playing, but nonetheless, he's probably going to be in the lineup. I think you should see Tevin Jenkins. You should see Larry Borom, especially with this being the last game of the year, and you really get an opportunity to evaluate each of those players, especially going into next year. Those are your young guys. I really believe those two should be starting. Tevin Jenkins should be starting at left tackle, and then I believe Larry Borom should be starting at right tackle. So you can get full evaluation of those two heading into next off season. But nonetheless, the Bears, they have to run the football. That has been the strength of their offense basically all season long. Now, in the first matchup, this Chicago Bears defense was absolutely hit by injuries and hit by the COVID bug, especially in the secondary. You had Tashawn Gibson out, you had Jalen Johnson out, you had Eddie Jackson out, all due to injuries and COVID. Of course, you have Houston Carson out, you had Deion Bush, and this Bears defense still played a very solid game. That was Akeem Hicks' first game back after missing quite a few games due to injury, and his presence was absolutely felt in that contest. The Bears still did a very good job against Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings offense, which was coming into that Monday Night Football contest on a roll. Now, Kirk Cousins is going to be back this week for Minnesota after being activated from the COVID list. Adam Thielen was out for that last game, but he's still going to be out for this game due to injury. Justin Jefferson, they really held him in check despite him having a touchdown catch. He only had 3 catches for 40-something yards. This young Bears secondary was led by Thomas Graham Jr., who played, I believe that was his best game of the year. That was his first game of his NFL career, and he came out and he played a very, very solid contest. Now, this Minnesota offense, like I said, is going to be without Adam Thielen. They still have Justin Jefferson. The Bears are going to get a lot of their secondary pieces back from the first matchup. I believe in that first matchup, it was Sean Desai's best coaching performance as the Bears defensive coordinator, especially when you have a lot of those injuries and a lot of COVID protocols, and they were still able to only hold this Minnesota Vikings offense to only 17 points. When coming into that game, you really thought Minnesota's Vikings offense was going to take off against all of the depleted members of this Chicago Bears defense, and they still were able to go out and do a very good job against that Minnesota Vikings team. Even though this game is going to be a little bit different, of course, it's going to be in a dome. Minnesota has less to play for because they were still fighting for a playoff spot in that last contest. I just believe that this Chicago Bears defense, with all their pieces back, Akeem Hicks is questionable at this point, but it's looking like he's probably going to play. The Bears have your secondary pieces back in Johnson, Gibson, and Jackson. Minnesota does come into this game without Thielen, but for the most part, they still have a lot of their weapons at their disposal. If that first game was any telling of that Chicago Bears defense and the ability they can really do to this Minnesota Vikings offense when all of the pieces are there, I could just imagine what this Bears defense is going to do with a lot on the line, especially with pride, a lot on the line, especially with some necessary changes that could be happening after this season. So I just believe, in my opinion, that this Chicago Bears defense is going to come out and it's going to, I think, make its presence known, especially when they have a point to prove and they have a little bit of revenge to get back on the Minnesota Vikings offense from this last game. Now, Dalvin Cook is healthy. Dalvin Cook, I believe, is one of the better backs in the NFL, and the way the Minnesota Vikings utilize him, just not as running the football, but also in the passing game as well. Alexander Madison has been a really good backup for this Minnesota Vikings team, and he's been productive whenever he's in the lineup. The offensive line does have, without Christian Darrisaw on the left tackle position and Cleveland in the left guard position, so it does have a little bit of a difference with 2 members of your offensive line being out. And you have Robert Quinn, who's been playing out of his mind. Travis Gibson had a very good game last week against the New York Giants, and I think he's looking for more playing time and something to prove going into next year. So I believe this Bears defense is going to come out a little bit with a little bit of fire and really get out to this Minnesota Vikings offense that really didn't look great last week against Green Bay, even though Kirk Cousins was not in the lineup and they were fighting for the playoff spot, and Sean Mannion did not look great last week, even though they're going to get Kirk Cousins back this week. I believe the Bears defense has a little bit of advantage in this particular matchup where they're getting all of their guys back, And Minnesota not having Adam Thielen, I think, is going to be a bigger difference in this ball game because of the pieces that the Bears are getting back. This Bears defense, I believe, can come out and really play some really inspired football this week in the last game of the season. 3 keys to a Chicago Bears victory in the last game of the season. 1, continue to be physical up front with your offensive line and run the football. That has been the identity of this Bears offense all season, and it's going to continue to be the identity of this Bears offense in this contest, even though Richardson and Tomlinson up front have been playing well for the Minnesota Vikings front. You're going to have to be physical and run the football, especially when Eric Kendricks is out of this ball game. Number 2, you are going to have to stop Minnesota's running game. Dalvin Cook is the identity of this Minnesota Vikings offense, just like Montgomery is the identity of the Chicago Bears offense. Everything that this Minnesota Vikings offense does is predicated on how successful their running game is. And the less successful you can make the running game, the more one-dimensional this Vikings team becomes, and the better you have chances to really slow this Minnesota Vikings offense down. And key number 3, you are going to have to attack in the passing game. Not a lot of these short routes, not a lot of these crossing short curls and short routes. You are going to have to attack in the passing game. Minnesota Vikings secondary is not the greatest. Bashar Breeland has been released from the team. Patrick Peterson has not been himself, even though you do have Harrison Smith back there. The Bears offensively are going to have to attack deep in this passing game to have more success than what they did in the first Monday Night Football contest against Minnesota. But with all that said, my pick for this game is going to be, it's a hard pick, but I'm rolling with these guys. I'm rolling with the Bears in this contest. I believe defensively getting all of their pieces back from when they had in the first matchup is going to make a difference. I believe that it being in controlled dome and not being in so much of in cold weather, and I believe that's going to make a difference for this Bears offense as well. And Andy Dalton and Nick Foles is probably going to start at quarterback, and we all know Matt Nagy likes to run his own offense. Even though Justin Fields doesn't really fit in what Matt Nagy wants to do, Andy Dalton and Nick Foles, whichever starts, fits in what Matt Nagy truly wants to do. So I just don't believe this Minnesota Vikings team is going to be playing the same type of football, especially with them not having the chance to make the playoffs. They're going to be facing a lot of changes in their offseason as well. And I just believe the Bears defense having more back from that first matchup. And I just believe the way this Bears defense played in the first matchup, and with all of their guys back, I think they can be exponentially better. So I do have the Bears winning this contest. It's going to be a close game. It's not going to be high scoring. I'm going to pick the Bears in this contest, 17-14, to close out this 2021-22 season with a win. That is all I have for you guys. Like I said, thank you for sticking with me throughout this entire season, the last preview video of this year. Leave this video a like to really show you guys appreciation. And comment your thoughts down below of what you think is going to happen in this Bears contest this week. And as always, and if you have gotten to this point and you're not subscribed, click that subscribe button and notification bell so you will not miss a single video. But I am APW Sports signing out. Make sure you guys stay safe. Have a great and excellent day, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.